What you are listening to is the sound of a universe with nothing in it. That hiss is real, the faint static left over from the Big Bang itself, the oldest sound there is. But underneath it, the thing we have spent 65 years straining to hear, there is nothing at all. 200 billion stars in our galaxy, 2 trillion galaxies beyond it, 13.8 billion years of time for something, anything, to wake up and make a sound. And in all of that, the only message we have ever received from another civilization is this: no signal, no reply. A galaxy that by every reasonable estimate should be crowded and loud, sitting instead perfectly, impossibly quiet. There is a name for how wrong that is, and the reason some scientists lower their voices when they talk about it is not that the answer is unknown. It is that the most logical answers are the ones we would least like to be true. It started, like a lot of dangerous questions, over lunch. The summer of 1950, at the Los Alamos laboratory in New Mexico, a few physicists were walking to the cafeteria. One of them was Enrico Fermi, the man who had built the world's first nuclear reactor, who understood better than almost anyone what a determined civilization could do with energy and time. They were talking about flying saucers, the strange reports that were in the papers that year, whether anything could really cross the gulf between the stars. Fermi let it go, and the conversation moved on. Then, in the middle of the meal, out of nowhere, he looked up and asked a question that has hung over this field ever since. Where is everybody? He was not joking. While the others talked, he had been doing the arithmetic in his head, and the arithmetic frightened him. Here is the arithmetic. Our galaxy is something like 9 billion years older than the Earth. That is an almost unimaginable head start, and you do not need warp drive or anything exotic to cross it. Just ordinary rockets, a fraction of the speed of light, and patience. Send out a few ships, let them build more when they arrive, and let those build more still. Run that forward, and a single civilization starting from a single planet could spread to every star in the Milky Way in a few tens of millions of years. Against the age of the galaxy, that is, the blink of an eye. So if life is at all common, if intelligence happens more than once, if even one species in all that time ever felt the urge to leave home, the galaxy should already be full of them. We should see their machines, their ruins, their lights. The sky should be obvious. It isn't. And that screaming absence, Fermi understood, is itself a piece of evidence. The hard part is working out what it is evidence of. For a while, it was possible to hope the numbers were simply against us, that life is a freak accident, and we happen to be the freak. Then, in 1961, an astronomer named Frank Drake sat down and tried to actually count. The equation he wrote chains together everything that has to go right for a civilization to be out there sending signals. How many stars form? How many have planets? How many of those could hold life? How often life becomes intelligence? Plug in cautious conservative numbers and the answer that keeps falling out is not 0. It is thousands, possibly millions. And everything we have learned since has pushed it the wrong way for our comfort. The Kepler telescope showed us that planets are not rare. Almost every star has them, and a healthy share sit in the warm band where liquid water can exist. The raw ingredients of life turn up on comets, in dust clouds drifting in the cold between the stars. Everything is in place. The galaxy should be a carnival. When we look, it is a graveyard. And we have looked, properly, with instruments since 1960. Telescopes pointed at the sky, sweeping the radio frequencies, listening for any signal too clean, too narrow, too deliberate to be a natural accident of physics. 65 years of listening. In all that time, there has been exactly one moment worth remembering. The 15th of August, 1977. A radio telescope in Ohio, nicknamed the Big Ear, was scanning on its own, printing its readings as columns of numbers on a roll of paper. When the astronomer Jerry Amon went through the printout days later, one sequence stopped him cold. A narrow signal, right around the frequency theorists had predicted an alien broadcast might use, coming from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. It had risen and fallen over 72 seconds, exactly as a fixed point in the sky should as the telescope swept past it. It was 30 times louder than the empty background. Amon circled the numbers in red pen and wrote one word in the margin. Wow. They looked again the next night, and the next, and for thousands of hours in the decades since. It has never come back. Whatever it was, it spoke once, and then it went quiet. That single 72-second maybe is the entire history of our species hearing something out there. So the explanations began, not because anyone was eager to offer them, but because a silence this complete demands one. And this is where Fermi's question stops being a fun puzzle and turns into something colder. The gentlest answers start from the assumption that we are not alone at all, that they are out there, in numbers, and simply choosing not to be seen. The tidiest version is called the zoo hypothesis, put forward by the radio astronomer John Ball in 1973. The idea is that the galaxy's older civilizations have agreed, by some arrangement we are nowhere near sophisticated enough to perceive, to leave the young ones alone. We are a wildlife preserve, a specimen behind glass, observed and left to grow on our own, the way a researcher watches a culture in a dish without ever reaching in. Every strange light, everything in the sky no one can quite account for, might be precisely what it looks like. Something watching and deciding not to answer. It is an unsettling thought. But as these things go, it is a kind one. In that version, they have manners. The next answer does not have manners. It is called the Dark Forest, and it came not from a scientist but from a novelist, the Chinese science fiction writer Liu Cixin. That has not stopped serious astrophysicists from treating it as one of the cleanest explanations on the table. Picture the universe as a forest at night. Every civilization is a hunter, moving carefully through the trees. You cannot see the other hunters. You cannot know whether they are kind or cruel, whether they will grow faster than you and decide you are a threat. You can know only one thing for certain. If you make a sound, light a fire, broadcast a signal, you have told every other hunter in the forest exactly where you are. And any of them, older and stronger and unsure of your intentions, faces one rational choice. Strike first before you can. In a universe too wide for trust to ever be confirmed, where a few centuries of head start can mean total dominance, the only species that survive are the ones that stay silent. Everyone who ever called out was found and erased. The quiet ones are still here. That is why we hear nothing. And we, broadcasting our radio and television into space for almost 100 years, sending out gold records with our address on them, have been the loudest thing in the woods. There is a softer possibility, and it is almost beautiful. Maybe we are not late to a party that already ended. Maybe we are early. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, but for most of that time it was the wrong place for anything like us. The heavy elements that rocky planets and living chemistry are built from, The carbon and iron and oxygen did not exist at the beginning. They had to be forged inside generations of stars and scattered when those stars died. The first stars had none of it. The galaxy needed to cook for billions of years before a world like Earth was even possible. So perhaps intelligence is not so much rare as new, and we are among the first to arrive. Not the stragglers at the end of the story, but the hosts, setting out chairs in an empty room, waiting for guests who simply have not woken up yet. If that is true, then we are something genuinely fragile and rare, maybe the ancestors of everything that we'll ever think in this galaxy. It is a strange weight to carry. And then there is the answer the scientists really do not like to say out loud. It is called the Great Filter, proposed by the economist Robin Hanson in 1996. And it is simple and brutal. Somewhere on the long road from lifeless chemistry to a civilization that spans the stars, there is a step so unlikely, so hard to clear, that almost nothing ever makes it through. A wall. And the silence of the galaxy is the evidence that the wall is real, because if it weren't, the universe would be loud. The only question that matters is where the wall sits. If it is behind us, we are extraordinarily lucky. Maybe the origin of life itself was the near impossible step. Maybe it was the leap from simple cells to complex ones, which took life on Earth nearly 2 billion years. If the filter is already in our past, the hardest thing is done, and the galaxy is ours for the taking. But if the wall is ahead of us, that is the version that keeps people up at night. It would mean every civilization climbs to roughly our stage, the stage of splitting the atom and rewriting biology and building machines that think, and then runs into something it does not survive. And every dead, sterile planet we scan with the James Webb telescope, every world that should hold something and holds nothing, nudges that wall a little further in front of us instead of behind. More than once, Stephen Hawking tried to warn us about exactly this. Shouting our existence into the dark, he said, might be one of the most dangerous things our species has ever done. A civilization far beyond us might regard us the way we regard insects, not with hatred, just with a complete and casual indifference. He was not being theatrical, he was reading the same arithmetic Fermi did. There is one last possibility, and it may be the strangest of all. Maybe they are already talking, and we simply cannot hear it. A civilization 1 million years past us would no more use radio than we use smoke signals. Their messages might run on things we can barely detect and cannot read. Neutrinos pouring straight through the planet, ripples in gravity itself, patterns hidden in the afterglow of the Big Bang. Think of an ant walking across a fiber optic cable. Billions of human conversations are flowing under its feet at the speed of light, and the ant will never know, because it does not have the equipment to notice. We might be the ant. The conversation might be everywhere, and we are simply not built, not yet, to perceive that it is happening at all. It is worth saying plainly how little we actually have to work with. One planet that we know holds life. One species that we know became intelligent. One 72-second signal that never repeated. From those 3 lonely points, we are trying to reason out the past and the future of the entire universe. It is like describing every ocean on Earth from a single drop of water, and even that one signal is slipping. In 2024, a team going back over the WOW signal with fresh eyes suggested it may not have been a message at all, but a cloud of cold hydrogen gas in deep space, briefly lit up by a sudden burst of radiation passing through it. A natural event, rare but explainable. 47 years late, they have not proven it. But it is a reminder that our one great maybe might have an ordinary answer too, and still we keep looking, because the alternative, turning away and deciding the silence means nothing, is something human beings seem unable to do. The Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile has just begun photographing the entire sky, night after night. The Habitable Worlds Observatory, planned for the 2040s, is being designed to do one specific thing: read the air of distant Earth-like planets for the chemical fingerprints of life. If anything nearby is breathing, we may know within a decade. And if every world we check turns out dead, the silence will only get heavier. That is the thing that actually stays with you once the aliens and the headlines fall away. The silence is not empty. It is not a blank waiting to be filled. It is data. It is the universe answering Fermi's question. We just cannot yet read what the answer says. And every version of that answer changes what it means to be alive right now. Maybe we are alone and therefore precious beyond measure. Maybe we are watched and studied and deliberately left in the dark. Maybe we are simply early, the first sparks in a cold room, or maybe we are next in line for the same wall that silenced everyone who came before. There is no comfortable reading. There is no version of the quiet that leaves you unchanged. Whatever it is telling us something, and it has been telling us for as long as we have known how to listen. So the next clear night, when you step outside and look up at those scattered points of light, hold on to what they really are. Each one is a sun. Most of them have worlds, and many of those worlds sit in the same narrow band of warmth and water that made us possible. By every count we can make, something should be out there looking back, and when we listen, all we hear is the hiss of the Big Bang, and now and then, the groan of a dying star. Which of the answers is the true one, we cannot say yet. But the instruments get sharper every year, and the silence gets a little thinner, and sooner or later something is going to break it. A signal. A structure where there should be none. An atmosphere that has no right to exist. And on the day it finally happens, we will have our answer, whether we are ready for it or not. If you want more of these, more dispatches from the edge of what we actually know, stay with me. The sky is full of them. I'll see you in the next one.